Hello, hello. Wait, wait a second. Wait a second. Um, all right. Let me see. Horace, I think we got a little bit of a problem here. Yeah, I mean, I know we had trouble with the snow room earlier. It looks like something happened to the viewing. I think there's a bit of frost here. Horace, is there anything we could do about this? Could you go and see if there's something in the tool room? Oh, thank you for the subscription, Jewelry Jelly. Yes, I think you need to turn on the defroster. Yes, we're gonna try and get this fixed up so you can see me. I think. Firefly, did someone let it go? Wait, hold on. I'm hearing something. Virgil, is that you, Virgil? What do you have there? Virgil, what do you have in your tentacles? Is that a flamethrower? Virgil, wait! No! Wait! Don't turn it on! Don't turn it! Bucket of water! Bucket of water! Grab the bucket of water! Okay, I think I've got it out. Alright, let's just use this defrosting solution right here, and that should do it! Oh my goodness. Yes, hello, greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of greeting across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horace, and welcome back, my dear, marvelous, wonderful scholars, to the study. Oh my goodness. Hello there, Firefly. Hello there, Jewelry Jelly. Hello there, Julian20. Hello there, FT Wastes. Oh, congratulations on getting first, Jewelry Jelly. Oh, I think we have the fires out, right? We have the fires out? I think we do. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna have a talk with you about this, Virgil, when I'm done. No, you're not off the hook. Didn't work anyway. So as you could probably tell, we had a little bit of an issue at the start of our little stream. So what happened is yesterday the snow room's door flew off the hinges. There was a huge blizzard. Pretty much froze half the study. We managed to get most of it under control, but it looks like there was some frost left over in here. And the problem is the frost from the snow room is of a mystic nature, so you can't just, as I tried to tell Virgil, you can't just use the flamethrower or any sort of heat to turn it off. You have to use chemicals and mystic ruins of some kind. I'm not an expert on that sort of thing. Firefly, did you inadvertently connect to the Winter Court? Actually, no. Though they have visited before, they're actually quite nice. Once had tea with the Queen. It's an interesting experience. Tea got cold fast. Oh my goodness. Speaking of tea, Ovid, could you possibly make me some tea? Thank you. Um, but yes. I hope everyone. How is everyone, by the way? Everyone doing well? Oh, I'm out of breath. Maybe it put me in a panic. Dr. Zadium, doing okay. Well, okay is good. Okay is okay. Okay is whatever you want it to be. As long as you are doing okay. Okay. Firefly, yeah, okay here. Well, I hope it's an okay. Okay. Yes, but we've been doing okay. I saying okay a lot too many times. Um, we're doing fine. We had well, Firefly ordered food and watching TMNT. Not sure what that is, but sounds interesting. Um, yes. We've been all right. I, unfortunately, yesterday when the snow room busted open, I inadvertently got infected briefly by a winter concept, which made me feel almost rather ill. I'm fine now. I'm all right now, but being infected by concepts is not fun. I can tell you that. Firefly, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Oh, interesting title. I'm sure it's enjoyable. Sure, it's enjoyable. But yes, I digress. It was it was not a fun time, and I was considering actually canceling today's stream if I didn't feel better. Luckily, my body adapted to the change of space and climate, so I am I'm well enough now to do our little stream tonight. Because of course I don't want to miss out on entertaining you, my fellow scholars, my wonderful dear scholars, my glorious, magnificent, dear, kind. I'm running out of adjectives, scholars, because I do this all for you. Not for me, but for you. Julian 20, we love your stories. We would cry. Of course you would cry. I think. I hope. But I digress. Tonight, we are reading again. And we are reading more of The Midnight Folk by John Masefield. You know, I didn't realize how long this book was going to be. Um, I don't know how many pages we have left of this. We are at page 165 and it ends at page 241. So we still have a bit to go, I think. One thing I never really realized was how small the font is in this book, which probably is why it is able to. Well, actually, let's do the math. Actually, I'm terrible at math. So we have oh, about 70 some pages left to read. Well, I think we can do it. I think we can master it. But I digress. Once again. So for those who have missed out, so far the story is The Midnight Folk is the story of young little Kay Harker, a boy who lives in Seeking's house and has discovered that his great grandfather, a sea captain, once had a treasure which was buried somewhere. He's gone out to search for it, and he's hoping to find it, but in his path lay a group of witches, as well as the wicked and mysterious Abner Brown. I had to look up that name for a second. I almost forgot. Oh my goodness. Um, right now we have just gotten to the point that he went on a ship trip. Well, he met a rat just a few minutes ago. A very interesting rat. And he also went on a sea trip in a ship from a painting, and I have completely lost track of what is going on in this book. Oh, we rescued an owl. We rescued an owl. An owl which I, for some reason, gave an Australian accent to. Wonder why that was. Huh. But anyway, my dear scholars, shall we begin our reading of The Midnight Folk once more? And I guess I'm going to try and guess where we left off, because again, this book has no chapters. breaks. So, my dear scholars, sit back, relax, have a hot or cold beverage, whichever is of your liking. Dim down the lights, and let us continue our reading of The Midnight Folk by John Masefield. The light had long since dwindled into the light of the governess's candle. She now flounced out of the room with it, leaving Kay to change his pajamas and get into bed in the dark. How on earth did she know that I was in the cellar? He wondered. If she heard me, why didn't she come down to stop me? Those steps that we heard must have been Black Malkin on the sneak again. He ran up and sneaked, that was it. But if she's in with Black Malkin... Hold on one moment, my dear scholars. Sorry about that, my tea just came. Thank you, Ovid. Ovid's such a wonderful book squid. I don't like the others. Oh, hello there, you legacy bookish. Welcome. We've just started our reading of The Midnight Folk. Those steps that we heard must have been Black Malkin on the sneak again. He ran up and sneaked. That was it. But if she's in with Black Malkin, she's in with the witches too. That's certain. Listen. Down in the hall, Black Malkin was wailing under a spanking. Hark, Kay said again. I believe she's spanking the little sneak. That's his voice anyhow. Who's Kay talking to? Is he just talking to himself at this point? The governess paused for breath in her spanking. Another time, she said, when I send you down to listen. Kay had now opened the door so as to hear. When I send you to listen, you'll wait till the end of the story, and not come away with the best of it not told. You shall have no milk for a week. After Black Malkin had gone away, whimpering and growling, saying, I'll be even with you before long. You'll see if I'm not. Kay tried to sleep, but could not, because he felt sure that somebody was weeping just outside, in the garden. It was someone. It was not Black Malkin. It was somebody saying, Oh, woe, 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 I can't make anybody hear. Then he distinctly heard the voice of Miss Susan Pricker Trigger say, I'm trying to remember who that was. Oh, yeah. Drat my wig, my sweet paw. Drat my wig, my sweet paw. That boy is in his bed there. Sing out to the horrid little toad, I mean the darling cherub, to buck his stumps and come and open the door. Wait, I'll do it for you, boy. If you don't want to be skinned alive, I mean my pretty little love. If you want to be thought a little angel, will you jolly well, I mean most obligingly, open the door to my sweet and no longer livery paw, and to me the pretty lady who loves little boys? I've been reading this for so long, I can't remember who each of these characters are. Oh my goodness. Oh, that tea's wonderful. I'm enjoying some marvelous chamomile tea tonight. It's a perfect companion to any good book. Highly recommend it. With just a tinge of honey. Kay looked out of the window. It was very odd, but there was Miss Susan Pricker Trigger and a cloaked man. I believe it's Sir Piney, Kay thought. If they go on making this noise, the governess will hear them. No, she won't then, my smart young sir, Miss Piney said, as though she had read his thoughts. She will not hear, being at this moment elsewhere engaged. But bane my cannon, boy, don't keep a lady waiting. All right, Kay said. I'll come down and let you in. So he did. He showed them into the drawing room and asked them to be seated. The room was brightly lit, though the clock said 1:15.
My pa and I have taken the liberty, Miss Trigger said, so you may know. The very first time my pa and I have promenaded, we come to see Mr. Harker. Isn't that so, my parkin?
It is my puppet, Sir Piney answered. Mr. Harker, thou is beset with abners and evils. Mr. Harker, I did my best to restore it, only I come too late.
Did you find the treasure then?
Kay asked. Well, as to that, Sir Piney said in his North Country speech, well, as to that, it wasn't so much me as to other fellow. The first thing I see when I come there, this is written in dialect, so pardon me for my attempt. When I come, the first thing I see when I come there, was where the old man John had dug up the earth. This is really hard to do. And the first thing I see was the gunwale of the yacht, the yacht with my initials cut, where I'd cut them when I was drunk. Oh my goodness! I apologize for anyone from the North Country if I am offending you. It's just really hard to do this. So I thinks no need to look further. Old man John has dug up the boat. He'll have the brass in his cellar. Old man John was a funny chap, so I up to him. You got the brass, I says. Tin's brass, he says. It's sin and heathen idols. Tin's yours, I says. It's Captain Harker's. Tin's Captain anyone's, he says, except Captain Belial's or my Colonel Mammoth's. If you're wondering what that means, Belial was the name of a demon, supposedly, and Mammoth it's a complicated story with a lot of offensive material in it. Needless to say, it's kind of a made up demon thing that was used to justify a whole lot of nasty things done to certain people. Old Captain Harker is dying for this, I says. Let the poor old man have it. Many die for the likes of this, he says. So here it will stop, out of all harm's way. And hadn't come all this long way to be talked to like yon. But to see I had to be cunning, I did what Foxy does to Goosey. That's talking, I says. That's got some sense, lad. Under the cap, I says, as well as some religion. Some religion. I'm sorry, this is hard to do. But I had to think quick. The sea, yon old farmer was daft. He might have taken the brass any day and dumped it in the sea. But then have been fair scuppered. Oh my goodness, how long does he go in? Oh my goodness. Ugh. Then yon pomp goose Abner was in the land. He might have find out about the brass any day. He might have shoot the older farmer and take old the brass to his'n. Then then I'd have been far scooped. I was very weaselly. I wasn't going home without yon stuff for Captain Harker. Vara cunning I was. So when I was all ready, when my bonny wee donkey all ready for sea, I called my Indians. Come on, I says, my lads, 'tis to glory we steer. So off we go to old man John. I wasn't gonna hurt him, though understand, Nobert just a bine and a bag. Oh, I wish you could actually see, my dear scholars, what the writing is for this one. It is really hard to read. So when we come up to old man John, he says, art going to yon revival meeting? He says. So I walks round him to get sown into his eyes. That reet, I says, the revival meeting. Then I oop with bine and my wee bonny Indians they oop with bag.
Now, my pa, Miss Trigger said, the first time we take a sweet evening walk, I am quite sure we ought not to remember unpleasantness. It's nice to see this little cherub, but I'm sure he wants to hear where the treasure is now, not what you may have done when provoked. It's the pepper in you again. When you feel inclined to give way to pepper, you must fight it down. You must sing one of your nice songs now about.
Here she sang. Oh, we're going to do a song, my dear scholars. Let's see if I... Let's hope I don't butcher this one like the last few songs. Okay, I'll try this one.
As I went a-walking in the green month of May, I met with my true love, and thus did she say, "Oh, sweet grows the clover, and blithe glows the corn, and the nightingale sings in the bonny white thorn." "Oh, true love," I answered, "but what can I care, since the—" Now join in with me and sing from there.
Kintron, get ready to clip. Oh, thank you, Kintron. Thanks. Just what I needed. Also, hello, Kintron. Welcome. We're reading the Midnight Folk. You're just about ready to hear me once again butcher this dialect. I was only telling Mr. Harker in my own way, my Piney, Sir Piney said. I was nobbut beginning at the beginning.
My sweet pa, Miss Piney said, that kind of beginning is over for you now forever. It is ended. We are beginning such a lovely time. Don't let us mix it with any banes or brandy. Put it out of this little cherub's mind with a song. Begin at, "Oh, true love," I answered.
Oh, dear son. I dare say that reet, my Piney, Sir Piney said. Oh my goodness. Kay saw Sir Piney rise to his feet, draw a breath, beat with his hand, and look at his daughter for the signal to start singing. Somehow the song did not begin, though Miss Piney was nodding, and her father was beating with his hand. Something made Sir Piney flit rapidly over to the table. His daughter opened her mouth very wide. Oh my goodness, that is frightening. Then both triggers faded swiftly. The drawing room faded. But no, Sir Piney was shaking a book on the table, saying, "Page 275." He seemed angry about something. The book shook and shook until it was as indistinct as the leaves of a tree all blown together on a windy day. "All right," Kay said. "I'll remember the page." At this, he rolled over, wide awake. "It must have all been a dream," he muttered, for the triggers were gone. He was in his bed in the dark night, not in the drawing room at all. "He seemed to have got the treasure," he thought. The clock struck 1. He was glad that it was not midnight. A cock, probably Mrs. Gossip's cock, roused in his roost by the booming of the bell, flapped on his perch and gave a half-hearted crow. A horse stamped on the path just below the window. Someone reined up there, blew a horn with a flourish, and cried in a clear voice, "The harvest moon is rounding! King Arthur holds court this first night!" Oh my goodness. At the stamping of the horse, Kay had been afraid, lest it should be the nightmare which Ellen's father had seen, trotting on the road, not making a sound, but with a ton of pale fire lolling over her teeth and eyes of blue flame. At the sound of the voice, all of Kay's fear left him. He hopped out of bed and looked down. There were 2 gray horses. One of them led. The rider of the other was a hatchet-faced man, clear in the moonlight, with rather long yellow hair falling over his shoulders. He had a horn slung over his shoulder and a sword at his side. "Are you for the court, master?" the man cried.
May I?
"The horse is sent for you." Kay ran downstairs, opened the door. The man helped him up into the saddle of the led horse. A sword was hanging from the saddle. "You may need that," the man said. "If the Black Knight's at the ford, we'll have to fight our way."
Will it bend if I chop with it?
Kay asked, thinking of the sixpenny swords which did bend. "It's Gareth's sword," the man said. "It will cut through steel and the bone beyond it." For those who don't know, this is a reference to Sir Gareth, the brother of Sir Gawain, if I recall, one of the knights of the Round Table.
Could I chop off a person's head with it?
"That's never an easy chop," the man said. "Your man's shield is generally up to his ear."
Could I if it wasn't?
"So many males are double at the throat," the man said.
Could I if it were single?
"Your man is generally looking out for a chop," the man said. "And a chop takes such a long time, you could see it coming."
But suppose he didn't see it coming?
By this time they were in the broad open green which ran between the lines of the houses of the village. The moonlight was very bright, and lo, a marvelous thing! All the fronts of the houses were gone, just as though they were dolls' houses. Kay could see the shops and the living rooms laid bare, with all the people in bed. Mr. Spiceman, the grocer, and old Mrs. Spectacle, the clockmaker, and Mrs. Sweetlips, who made such sugar candy. There they all were, and floating about them as they slept were the loveliest people Kay had ever seen. They were like people made of light and of rainbows, and with exquisite faces and hands. They were soothing the sleep of all there, driving away little black annoyances and bothers, and giving lovely dreams instead.
What are those people?
Kay asked. "Those," the man said. An old man called Sir Alpeg, down by the river, always sends those. They are quite real. They go about the world and help people. Now there's the ford and... Yes, there's the Black Knight. Take your sword in both hands. That's the way." "Halt there," the Black Knight called. "Come up one by one and render up your weapons." Kay could see him in the blackness of the ford as a big black man on a black horse reined up in midstream. The steel gleamed on his lowered helmet and moving sword. He stood stock still. The water gleamed as it flowed round the horse's fetlocks. It was all still, moonlit night. Not a cock crow, not an owl's cry, not a fox's bark, no whisper of wind, nothing but that grim form in front, and the water tinkling away past the fetlocks. Kay thought that he saw the black form incline forward in the saddle as though to urge up his horse. "Charge him, Kay!" the messenger cried. "Chop him on that side. I'll chop him on this." Kay felt his horse leap forward with a splash into the ford. He had long since dropped the reins so as to have both hands on the sword. He trod down deep into his stirrups and leant against the back of his saddle, and then, swoosh, swoosh, he lashed out sideways at the Black Knight's head, just as he lashed out to a ball on the leg side at cricket. He had a lovely feeling that he had made a magnificent hit. Really, Kay is such a violent little kid. As his horse came out of the river on the other side, Sir Lancelot caught his rein. "Well hit, Kay, well hit," he said. "There goes his pagan head, look." Oh my goodness, Sir Lancelot! Turning round, Kay was just in time to see the Black Knight's head, spouting blue flame, rolling splash into the river. His black horse, carrying his body, galloped away into the night. He'll come He'll come back to put his head on again presently, the messenger said. Merlin ought to deal with him. Merlin is going to deal with him, Lancelot said. But meanwhile, Kay, that was a superb chop. You got in every ounce of your weight, just in exactly the right spot. And then it was so perfectly timed, I never saw so neat. There was his head, and then flash! There wasn't his head. You ought to tell King Arthur about it, Sir Lancelot, the messenger said. For a midnight chop there's been nothing like it since you fought that mad giant Ugg, the one with boar's tusk, in the thunderstorm. I'm used to midnight work, but I missed him altogether, I tell you. I tell you, Sir Lancelot, this Kay will make a knight, and oh, won't our present Kai be jealous? By this time they had ridden up the hill into the dark lane, overshadowed by yew trees, which was still called King Arthur's Ride. The lane was a good place for wild Canterbury bells, which were now in full blossom. Every Canterbury bell was now lit with a glowworm, so that the lane glittered. At the gate of the Round Table camp it was as light as day. Excuse me. But inside the camp it was brighter than any day. All things seemed so soaked with lights that they glowed. I see that King Arthur is over there, hearing petitions with Merlin, Sir Lancelot said as he dismounted. But in the meantime, Kay, you come along with me and see the camp. Excuse me. First they put the horses into the stable, which ran down one rampart. There were 700 horses, all white, cream-colored, gray, or piebald, none darker than that. They were picketed in long lines, eating grass from the holy meadow, which is always green. Each one of the 700 was so gentle that Kay could feed him by hand, or slip between his legs without any fear of a kick. Many of the horses knew Lancelot, for he had the gift of drawing beasts and birds to him, which is true. That is in the books, I believe. When he came into the lines, there was a general whinny of welcome. "Oh, I wish that horses would whinny to me," Kay said. "But they do," Lancelot said. "They're saying, welcome, Kay." I don't know why that makes me laugh. "Please, what do you have to do here? What do you do here?" "This is King Arthur's court, where all people come who care. Many come, as you can see. It's hard work here all the time. Ah, there is the Queen." They were standing near a little covered well or trough of bright running water. A chariot, drawn by two white, small, very fiery stallions with harness of red enamel, drove rapidly up. There were two ladies in the chariot, one of them a sweet-faced, sad woman in a black dress. "That's Bragwin, Lancelot. That's Bragwin," Lancelot whispered. "The Queen is driving." Bragwin, she sounds familiar. I can't remember if that's the woman who ends up being Galahad's mother or if it's someone else. I can't remember exactly, but I know Bragwin is in the Arthurian cycle of stories. Queen Guinevere was standing to drive and urging her lovely horses like energy itself. She was a somewhat fierce-looking and splendid beauty, with the marvelous red-gold hair that gave light in the darkness. The fierceness of the drive had brought color to her cheeks and made her eyes glow like violets. Her mouth was of an exquisite beauty, a little parted now from excitement. And I don't know if this is a song or if it's a poem. Guinevere's beauty has had peers, but none has matched her mouth and ears. Interesting. Her hair was plaited, then heaped on her head and held there by what looked like a twisted strand of gold leaf. She wore a dress of rough green linen with crystal neck-clasp. "So, you've brought Kay to us," she cried, half reining in. "I welcome you, Kay. Arthur and Merlin could see him now. Lancelot, if you would take him there, and some day will you drive with me, Kay?" "Oh, I would love to," Kay said. She looked at him very earnestly and smiled. "We will drive," she said. "We will drive the holy road next midsummer night against Uther's spirit horses. He drives there against any who come, 11 miles on the grass. You must not forget that you have promised the queen." "Indeed, I will not forget," he said. Mm, lovely tea, lovely. She smiled and drove on towards the end of the horse lines. Lancelot led him away towards the king. "She is the queen of all horsewomen," he said. "She is the daughter of an old king in Shropshire. Shropshire. I'm terrible with British names. Shropshire. Now we are remaking what we undid." Indeed, all the court seemed happy as though remade. All the people who had previously put, yeah, all the people who had brought petitions were going joyfully away. Some of them were parties of knights who were going to see their grievances set right. All the troubled people had been comforted, and all the friendless little children were receiving the loveliest toys from the Lady Vivian. There were horses and chariots, but the little tiny horses were real. Then there were tame bullfinches and linnets which perched on the children's fingers and sang to them. But the most beautiful of all were the bird kites made by Merlin. They were like real big birds which flew. On their backs were little boxes with seats in them in which the children sat as they flew. Some of these birds sang like skylarks when they were high in the air. Then near the gates of the camp, Kay saw parties of knights returning from quests, with prisoners whom they had set free, or with evil kings and tyrants whom they were bringing to judgment. Then in one place there were most lovely people, all shining with light and colors, some of them singing and all happy. "Those are the best people of all," Lancelot said. "Remember that if you call them ever, they will come to you."
"Will they really?"
Kay said. "They have promised that to the king. All those lovely people will come to you whenever you call." They were now drawing near to the central space of the camp, where the king sat with his counselor Merlin. The king was unlike anybody Kay had ever seen. He could not see Merlin so well because he was bent over a map which a very muddy traveler was showing to him. Something in the shape of the muddy traveler or his attitude seemed familiar to Kay. He was pointing out places on a map and asking Merlin about them. Merlin looked up suddenly and said something to the king. Kay saw Merlin clearly as he looked up. He had a strange, troubled, happy face, as though he was always having very difficult puzzles set to him, and always finding the answers. The king turned, spoke to the traveler, and then told a couple of knights, "Go with him, will you, to see if you can find this treasure. It ought to be restored." He nodded, and Merlin smiled to the traveler, who at once rolled up his map and turned away, with the knights to his horse, which was being held at a little distance. "Now, Kay," Lancelot said, "it's your turn. Come along and speak to the king." He drew Kay forward through the crowd, and the bodyguardsmen cleared a path for him. He saw King Arthur look at him with a smile of with a smile of welcome. Then suddenly he heard his name called. "Kay! Kay!" Looking to the caller, he saw that it was the muddy traveler, who had now mounted his horse. The muddy traveler was Edward, his beloved Edward, Eduardo da Vinci as he was called, and his horse was Horse, the best of all horses, and with him was Robin Pointnose on horse, and they were all waving and calling and whinnying to him. "Edward!" No, that's Kay.
"Edward!"
he cried.
"Edward, how are you?"
"Why, Master Kay," Ellen said, rolling him awake,
"don't you know my name's not Edward yet? Do wake up, there's a good boy. It's almost breakfast time."
So that was only a dream too, he said, just as I made sure that it was Edward. But now it's real. This is the interesting thing with the book, and I noticed this with a lot of Macefield's children's stories, including Box of Delights. He never makes it clear how much of the story is a dream, how much is real, how much is magic, how much is simple daydreaming. It's all kind of a very strange, murky mix of things. Julian 20, it is all magic. It is kind of a magic, yeah, and it's a very strange sort of magic. It's not like a lot of the other it's kind of unique among British fantasy, I have to say. It's not like anything else that I've read. It's just a very dream-like setting. The whole quest is very much like a dream, like a child's dream put in paper. And now I shall, yeah, and now I shall be simply frightfully punished because of old Blinky last night. He went, he went down to Yeah, no, that was Kay. It's hard to tell who's reading this. And now I shall be simply frightfully punished because of old Blinky last night. He went down to breakfast with his heart in his boots. Presently, the governess came down, glowered at him to show that she had not forgotten, said an awful grace in Latin, and, instead of speaking or eating, she became deeply interested in a letter which had come for her. It was a very queer letter, written in green ink on yellow paper with very untidy writing. The governess read it through 3 times. She never ate much breakfast. Today she ate none, though she sipped away 3 big cups of strong China tea, each with 4 lumps of sugar and a third of the cream. She said no word about Blinky. She never noticed when Kay ate the 3rd egg. She never gave him his coffee. Then, just before lessons, a very smart carriage came to the door. She was evidently expecting it, for there she was in the hall, all dressed for going out.
There'll,
Yeah, gotta get her voice again.
there'll be no lessons today, Kay, she said, and I shall be out for lunch. Mind I hear no bad reports of you when I come back.
Then out she sailed to the carriage, where a footman opened the door, and a lady who dangled and glittered, Kay could not see her face, welcomed her. Away they drove with 2 very shiny gray horses, and the footman sticking out his elbows. Black Malkin came purring along the hall after Kay. Yes, Kay thought, you're to give reports of me when she comes back, aren't you? You shall go into the stable, my son, and do an honest day's mousing for once. So he popped Black Malkin through the stable window into the harness room and left him there with the mice and a saucer of rainwater. Oh my goodness, that's kind of cruel. Here's the sneak, he thought. All the sneaking has been done by him. And now, he thought, I'll look at the book in the drawing room which Sir Piney shook so hard. The book was on the table just as it had been when Sir Piney had shaken it. It was a fat drawing-room sort of a book, in a worn binding of imitation green leather. It was called Aunt Susan's Compendium of Pleasant Knowledge, 1841 to 1842. That's quite the title for a book. He looked at page 275. It seemed very dull, being directions how to make a pretty and useful pen wiper out of scarlet flannel and a merry thought bone. It was only a dream, he said. He left the book on the hearth rug. What I really want to know, he thought, is what she has to do with the witches. I bet she is in with them. Of course she is in with them. She uses Black Malkin as a spy, and of course she invites them here to supper.
"Hoity-toity child,"
said Grandmama Harker's portrait on the wall above him.
"if you think that, you should deal with her. Such a room! Bless us and save us! You must be the master in your own house. Don't let a witch take charge of Seekins. This is a house where upright people have lived. Let's have no Indorines nor Jezebelines in Seekins. Bell her, Kay. Book her, boy. Candle her, grandson, and lose no time, for time's lost done with, but must be paid for."
He looked up at her portrait, which was that of a very shrewd old lady in a black silk dress. She was nodding her head at him so that her ringlets and earrings shook.
"Search the wicked creature's room," she said, "and if she is, send word to the bishop at once. It's more than a rector's work to deal with an Endor."
"All right," Kay said. "I'll go. I will search." To the west of Kay's room, up a small flight of stairs, there was a corridor, into which he never ventured. It was so dark and awful. On both walls were dark old portraits, and the doors of the rooms where their originals had lived and died. When these doors were shut, the corridor was as dark as the cellar. He knew that the door to the right, He knew that the doors to the right and left, at the farther end of the corridor, were the doors of her rooms. Her bedroom to the left, her study opposite. His heart thumped, and his mouth became very dry as he went up the flight of stairs, past the large-scale old yellow chart of the port and bay of Santa Barbara, towards what might be a kind of dragon's den. Sorry, having some more tea, my dear scholars. To his great joy, the corridor was light. Her study door was swinging open with a bunch of keys dangling from the keyhole. And this was strange, and even awful, because he knew that Ellen had never seen the inside of the study since the governess had taken charge. It was always locked. Why was it open now? Could she have crept back unknown, unheard? Was she inside the room like a spider in her web, waiting for him to appear? Would Grey Malkin, that mysterious cat who was so seldom seen, be on guard there, ready to fly at him? Would there be worse guards, fiery dogs, or a python? Or would there be secret guards who would watch him through portraits, say nothing to him, but report all his doings on her return? Very timidly he tapped upon the door, half expecting that she would answer. No answer came. All was still within, save for the blind flapping near the open window, a cruising wasp and a butterfly trying to get out. He took his fate in his hands and walked boldly in. There was not any sign of Grey Malkin. The room had no visible spies. There were no portraits on the walls for spies to look through. There was a good many books in the shelves, and some portfolios of drawings propped against the wall, for she was always sketching rather well. On her writing table was a round case full of colored discs, which looked very odd and gave Kay a queer feeling. He was glad to turn away from them. Even then he didn't like the look of them. He covered them with a cloth. On the desk was... What? On the desk was the handbag which Mrs. Pouncer had carried when she had come into his bedroom with Black Malkin. He would have known that bag anywhere, because it was black with steel moon and stars worked on it. Beside the bags lay the Roper Bilge's copy of the Sea Gunner's Practice, but it had been tampered with. All the written pages at the end had been neatly removed. They were no longer there. "I say," he said to himself, "how on earth did she get this from Mrs. Pouncer? How indeed? It was not so easy to say. He stood in the middle of the room, staring round him. Looked innocent enough, but was it? There was some strange little woodcuts on the bookshelves. When he looked at these more closely, they frightened him much as the discs had. Then there were some most strange playing cards with Latin underneath their figures. He did not like the look of these. Then the books were not quite all that they might be. He only opened one. It was hieroglyphics instead of print. He put it back in its place and opened one of the portfolios of drawings. He did not like that at all. The drawings were of strange black figures upon red paper. He began to be very much afraid. Then he thought it was not very nice of him to come spying on her when her back was turned, so he went out of the room. Then he thought that Grandmama Harker was right, that he ought to make sure that his home was not being used for witchcraft. So he went back again. He had not yet looked into the cupboard. The cupboard, as he knew from Ellen, was really a room, being what was called a powdering chamber. "And supposing," he said to himself, "supposing Mrs. Pouncer is really her sister, and supposing she is in the powdering room living there, that would account for the way the things go from the larder." He looked through the cupboard keyhole. It was dark within. He could make out nothing. He flung the door wide open, crying, "Aroint thee, witch!" in case Mrs. P should be there. Mrs. P was not there. No one was living there. The little room was in use as a clothes cupboard. But what was the clothes which hung from the peg? Ah, what indeed? There was a row of 7 crooked pegs. From each peg there hung a witch's complete outfit thus: 1 lawn scarlet cloak, 1 black stick with a crooked handle, 1 tall black pointed shiny hat. And attached to each hat there was something. He had to turn up that nearest hat to see what it was. It was marked inside Sylvia Daisy. The outside was a marvelous wax face of Mrs. Pouncer. "Now I know it. Now I know all about it," he said. She is Mrs. Pouncer. This is her mask. And look at all her magic and witch things on the shelf. She is a queen witch. She'll take a whole archbishop to settle." It's interesting that in Box of Delights, which I'll spoil a little bit, Sylvia comes back. Sylvia Daisy comes back, but when she comes back, Kay refers to her not as Sylvia Daisy, but as Sylvia Daisy Pouncer from that point on. Alien 20, she is nasty. She is very nasty. She is played by the wonderful Patricia Quinn in the television version of The Box of Lights, and she does a remarkably wonderful job playing the role. Highly recommend it if you can find it. He looked at the magic things on the shelf. There was a magic lantern which lit the cupboard like daylight when he touched a button. There were magic baskets labeled "Wish." There were magic ladders and ropes which pulled out and out and out to any length you pleased. There were fox eye and cat's eye spectacles for seeing in the dark. He pocketed a pair of these. There was a gallon tin of invisible mixture. There were 7 pairs of 1 league shoes, 7 pairs of 7 league shoes, and 7 pairs of 49 league boots. These last were screwed down to keep them still. Then there were green and scarlet and yellow bottles, labeled Snake Bite, Dragon's Blood, and Pouncer's Best Bewitching Mixture. Then there was an ivory box labeled Ointment for Turning Little Boys into Tomtits. Kay did not touch this. Then there were bowls of gums and herbs for incantations. Then there were books. Oh, such books with such titles. Broomsticks for the Midnight Practice. Spells and How to Bind Them. The Beginner's Merlin. Merlin's 100 Best Bewitchels. Werewolves by one of them. Shape Changing for All by M. Leaf Lefay. And at the end of the shelf was a small red book, Why I Am a Witch by Sylvia Daisy Pouncer. I say, he thought, that is a confession. She glories in it. I'll write to the bishop. I don't care if it is sneaking. She has no business to be doing this kind of thing. All the same, he thought as he looked at the row of scarlet cloaks, it would be rather sport to try on Mrs. P's things. He hesitated for an instant. Then he lifted the cloak from the peg. The outfit came down in one piece. He put it on before the mirror. The cloak was rather long, but when he said, I wish it was shorter, it shrank to the right size. When he looked at himself in the glass, lo, he was Mrs. Pouncer, hooked nose, crooked chin, and wicked black piercing eyes, which could see further into things than his own eyes, as he very soon found. They were eyes like gimlets. Oh, excuse me. I say, he said, I look exactly like her. Now I'll just watch myself conjure. At this, he put his left hand on his heart and struck the crooked stick downwards on the floor. I mean, you would think you know, is it really wise to try and mess around with witchcraft, my dear scholars, if you think about it? Seems like it'd be kind of dangerous. Then again, this is a little kid, so. Instantly, he felt himself lifted in the air, off his feet, and through the open window. He had not time to catch hold of the rose trellis. He was carried so quickly past. He went floating along the drive, over the gate, over the Crowmarsh estate, past Blinky's tree, over the manege where they were lunging the chestnut colt, then faster and faster, past the house where the poor mad lady lived, past the millstone on Racecourse Road, past the white rails of the course, on, on, on. Kintron, yeah, it does tend to be. Yeah, it does tend to be. Oh dear, Kay cried. It's taking me straight to where all the witches are, and they'll turn me into a tomtit. Stop, stop! I charge you to stop! It didn't stop. He didn't stop. He went faster and faster. Oh my goodness. Soon the second milepost was passed. Then the third. The stick began to point downwards towards a wooden hollow where the house called Russell's Den stood. The stick was pointing towards the house. Nothing that Kay could do seemed to have the slightest effect. I can't turn it or stop it, he said. I'm going straight to those windows. The house was a big brick building of the time of Queen Anne. It had a gloomy, heavy look, as though it were drunk and wore a wig. Oh, excuse me. Finished off that tea. Wonderful tea. I'm going straight to where all the witches are, Kay thought. They will bewitch me into a mouse and set the cat at me. Oh dear, oh dear. The stick carried him swoop through one of the upper windows into a big gloomy room, paneled to the ceiling. There were two open doors in this room, one on each side of Kay. People were talking just beyond one of these doors. Kay heard his governess's voice saying,
What was that came through the window in the next room?
"It was my cat, Jouncer," the milky voice of Abner Brown replied. "He always comes in that way."
Really?
The governess said.
By the pricking in my toes, I thought that it must be one of us. No, dear Pouncer,
Sister Aconite said.
my toes pricked too, but I distinctly heard the cat's feet go patter-patter.
"Jouncer's one of us," Abner Brown said. "He knows our moonlight games and loves them. But more coffee, dear Brother Venom." "No, I thank you, Master Abner." "How time has slipped away, my dear Seven," Abner Brown said, "in listening to Sister Pouncer's thrilling story revealed by this owl. What a pity that her faithful spy Black Malkin did not wait for the end. He might have spared us so much trouble. We might have learned the whole truth. And this Harker child released the owl, you say?"
Yes, I imagine it. I'd a very good mind to tomtit him there and then.
Here the other witches joined in with,
It's a pity you didn't. The idea of such impertinence. Just as we might have learned the whole truth too.
etc., etc. "Wait!" Abner Brown said. "Does this Harker child know more of the owl's tale than we do?"
He may. He may know the whole truth.
"So I think," Abner said, "I'm sure, or almost sure, that old Trigger got the treasure. What he did with it is the question. I think he gave it back to old Harker, who put it under that big hearthstone which you say is in his room. We'll look there this afternoon. But in the meantime I have been preparing a peep show into the past. The spells for that must be almost working now. We may be able to see exactly what happened. I saw it as a child, remember, but was too young to know, and neither my pop nor my lamented grandpop ever explained it to me." At this instant a gong began to beat in a room somewhere on the other side of the house. "Hark!" said Abner Brown. The gong beats changed to a voice which cried, "The spells are working! The past is laid bare! I charge you to come to see it!" "That is the call," Abner said. "Now, if nothing blurs the picture, we may see what happened. Let us come along, then. Will you not wear your wrap, dear Pouncer?"
No, thank you.
"This way, then, through the door."
Oh, oh,
Kay thought.
they're coming here. They will catch me.
If you're wondering why I'm doing such an odd sort of pattern of vocals for Abner Brown, I am I am literally trying to match the vocal pattern of the actor who played Abner Brown in the Box of the Lights version, which he gives a very. The book describes Abner Brown, as you noticed, as having a milky voice to him. The Abner Brown in this serial has a very controlled, sort of flowing voice with a slightly emphasis on certain words, a lot of power in certain words. Yulin 20, you are doing a remarkably good job. Well, thank you, thank you. I love a good voice acting bit for books like this. He had no time to think of what to do. Since the stick would not take him back through the window, his only possible way of escape was through the door beside him. He slipped through it into a corridor just as the witches entered the room where he had been. The corridor was long and white, with doors on each side. Quite close to Kay was a small steel door, standing ajar. It was very heavy. He slipped past it into a narrow passage and closed it behind him. He just had time to draw the heavy bolts before the witches were pushing at it from the other side. Kay went along the passage into a small room brilliantly lit, although it had no windows. There was a second steel door. When Kay had shut and bolted this, he could hear no sound of the outer world, not even the witches hammering on the steel outside. I am a prisoner now, he thought. The room had steel walls, some of which were hung with red velvet, all marked with magic. There were 8 chairs in a row facing these red curtains. Kay sat down, wondering what he was to do next. Suddenly, fiery letters appeared one by one across the curtains, spelling out the words, "Open us."
All right, Kay said. I will.
So he walked across and opened the curtains. Behind them was a recess in which stood a Beside them was a recess in which stood a tall red pedestal, the height of a man. On the top of the pedestal was a man's head, made in gold or other bright material. This head was fitted with spectacles and earpieces of a magic kind, so that it might see and hear the past. I have seen and heard, the head said. Remove these trappings from me. Kay removed the spectacles and earpieces. As they pricked his finger, he dropped them to the floor. Kay removed the spectacles and earpieces. As they pricked his fingers, he dropped them to the floor, against which they burst. After this there was silence, till the head said, 1 minute is past. Question me.
What have you seen and heard?
Kay asked. You shall see and hear, the head answered. Give me 1 second, my dear scholars. I have to open up some more water. Oh my goodness. Excuse me. The room became suddenly dark, except for a glimmering about the head. You are looking into the past and hearing it, the head said. Instantly, Kay saw a tiny shimmering picture of waves beating on a beach. But no, it was not a picture. It was real. The waves broke, and the trees beyond the sand were shaking. It grew larger till it was like the scene itself. The surf was bursting, the sun glaring, and the hard leaves of the trees clacking on each other. A man came out of the jungle onto the sand. He was dressed in gray cotton clothes and wore a tall straw sun hat. He was staring along the beach. Suddenly, he turned his head and looked straight at Kay, so that Kay saw his face. The words of Miss Pricker-Trigger came into his head at once.
A white, sweet, sanctified horse-dealer, a cherry-lipped poisoner.
The man in front of him was so like those descriptions. He had long white hair and beard, a rosy face, and a smile. His eyes had a way of turning up as though looking at heaven were his chief delight. His hands were plump and white. He smoothed down his beard with them. Yet when his eyes turned up, Kay felt that the man was watching out of the corners of them. His outside seemed all woolly white lamb, and the inside all bitey, rough wolf. I don't know. Is that an insult to wolves? I can't tell. That is old Abner Brown, Kay said. It could not be anybody else. Abner Brown poked into the sand for turtle eggs, found some, and then sat down to suck them. Ugh, sounds awful. Yes, my Benito Suez, he said in his milky voice when he had sucked the eggs. I thought I recognized you when you came by 3 days ago. I was sure that you were my Benito, and so you are. And you are looking for what we looked for all those years ago, just as I am. Now, as no one seems to be about, I'll look at these papers of yours, which I made so bold as to pinch from your room at the inn this morning, while you were fishing. Here he settled himself comfortably, pulled out some letters, and read. "Oh, oh," he said. "So your real name is Trigger, is it? Sir Piney Trigger of Trigger Court, England. You must be a rich man, yet you come looking for my property. Well, if I don't find my property soon, I'll see if I can't squeeze a little of your wealth out of you. I guess you'll be quite glad to pay little Abner not to tell what he knows about you. So, though I guess we are on the brink of finding my property, now that we are digging the red clay." At this point he stood up, muttering, "I may be Millionaire Brown even now." Shading his eyes, he stared at a big, strong wooden ketch with tan sails which had just swung into sight on her way to the sea. "That's the wherry that was at Watford's Farms Landing," Abner said. "I wonder what she's doing. She was to have taken Watford's cotton, but not till next week. I may be wanting her myself if all things go as I hope. But she is laden and seems to be making for the sea." After this, Abner picked some berries from the shrubs as a dessert to the turtle eggs. "Well, well," he said at last, "I have had my little walk. I'll be getting back to the great work. Today may repay me for all my troubles." At this moment there came a loud cry of, "Papa! Papa! Are you there, Papa? Hey, Pop, where are you?" "I'm here, Abner called. "Don't make such a noise, boy, even if you have found it. What are you yelling murder for? Have you found it?" A man of about 30 years of age appeared through the scrub. He was dragging by the hand a boy of about 5. Both were like old Abner in the face, being plainly son and grandson. Both were scarlet from running, and gasping for breath. "Speak, can't you?" the old man said. "Have you found it?" Young Abner panted and waved towards the wherry. "He's got it, in the wherry." "Who's got it? Got what? What wherry?" The man, Ben. All the treasure. He tied old farmer up in a bag and took the lot. He's taken to sea in his barge there." At this, old Abner boxed his son's ears. "Don't bring me a crazy tale like that," he said. The son took out a pocket telescope, focused it, and handed it to his father. Take a see for yourself, Pop," he said. "That's Ben's steering. And now, little Ab, don't you stand there grinning as though this was something good to eat." At this he boxed his son's ears, which set him howling. Oh, what a lovely family. No wonder Abner's so messed up. Old Abner took one yeah. Old Abner took one hasty glance at the steersman.
It's he said. It's Benito Trigger. There's only one chance, and that's a poor one. He's going about now. There is his head sails shaking. You will make one short tack almost to that little point. If we run there like smoke, we'll get there as soon as he will. As he goes about, you hail him, Abner. He may not know you.
What am I to say? Abner said.
Yell out danger, murder, ask a passage, or say a snake's bit you. Yell help!
He won't pay no heed, the son said.
Anyway, he'll look at you, and while he looks, I'll give him all the lead I've got in my shooter. Run! Now run! Let the brats stay here. Stay here to have and eat berries. Pop and Grandpop are going in swimming.
They left little Ab on the sand while they ran as fast as they could towards the channel. Kay saw the barge leaning over with all her sails wrinkling full and a white streak spreading at her bows. She was making good speed, for the current in mid-channel helped her. Son Abner ran for the point. The old man ran more to the left. Kay saw his white hair blowing and saw him draw his revolver. In a minute, Abner was crouched behind a shrub. Abner the son was hopping from rock to rock to the water's edge. He flapped the rocks with a bough to scare the snakes which were sunning there. His father, a much more poisonous snake, was now making a rest for his shooting arm. The barge came rapidly nearer. Her bows gleamed in the sun. Her long green wind veins streamed away to the leeward. Once again, you see John Masefield has a real love of anything involving ships or the ocean or the sea. He especially seems to know his nautical terms. Kay saw an Indian crouched in her bows. The sails still held the steersman, but Kay kept saying to himself,
"The steersman is Piney Trigger, or Twinny Pricker. I shall see him, for this is he alive. This is what happened."
I need a little drinking. Huh. He's like, young Abner was now knee-deep in the creek, with his arms lifted as though pleading for help. Something seemed to trouble the ketch. The white streak at her bow suddenly dimmed to gray. At the same instant, the full, wrinkling, swelling bag of the foresail crumpled up, shook, and banged. The wind went out of the nut mainsail an instant later. Then her wet side swerved itself round, and Kay saw the helmsman stoop as he pitched some gear across and let the boom gabe. I think that's right. The foresail flapped and filled on the other tack. Young Abner, just an instant too late, shouted, "Hi, brother! For any sake! Hi, hi, hi! Give me a passage!" The steersman, whose eyes were on his sail, cast a glance at him. Young Abner cried again, "Hi, brother! Take me down with you!" Then, bang, bang, bang went the shots from the old man's revolver. A white streak suddenly appeared on the barge's side, where a splinter had been knocked off by a bullet. A fourth shot followed. It flew wide somewhere. Then the revolver jammed. By this time the barge was moving fast away on the other tack. Piney Trigger shook his left hand at them as he swept far out of shot. The breeze was freshening out there in the estuary. Light, bright splashes flew up on the barge's side as she hurried away. In less than a minute she was fairly out to sea, heading away from land. The two Abners met together and watched her. They said nothing till she was out of sight. The old man fidgeted with his revolver, and as he could not open the catch, flung it far into the creek.
There, he's gone, he said at last. I'd have shot him full of holes if the running hadn't made my arm shake. Then just as I'd got the bead well on him, the wheel jammed. Where's he making for?
England, I reckon.
Go on with your England. He's off for one of the islands.
Well, couldn't we tell the Coast Guard at Crab Point and have him headed off? Sorry.
He'll be 20 miles at sea before you get there, and what good would it do to us if they did head him?
Well, at least they would stop him having the stuff. Old Abner answered this with a snarl. After a pause, he said,
Now that we're cooler, answer, how do you know he has the stuff?
I was digging in the new place, his son replied, when I heard some wagons coming along. They were going along the pike to French Fellow's pier. I didn't look up till they'd passed. Then I thought they looked like old John's wagons, and I thought that one of the men in the second wagon was this Ben fellow. I just thought he's getting a lift to the pier to do a bit of fishing. I went on with my digging and dug quite a piece. I found one of these Indian arrowheads.
Sit on it, his father said. Get on! I suppose an hour later, old Farmer John came running up, pretty near out of his mind. Did my wagons go past here? He asked.
Sure, I said.
Was that man called Ben a Trigger in them?
I guess so. What's the matter, John?
Matter? He said. That fellow and his Indians. You call him Ben, but his real name's Trigger. He and they knocked me flat, tied me up, and took all the stuff I had out of my cellar. It was that gold and silver which I guess you've been looking for. I had it, and they took it, loaded it up onto my own wagons, and said they were going to the pier. But I'll pier them yet, he said. I've sent for them to the marshal. I've called Joe. I've got my gun. You call your pops. Quick now. And we'll get him at the pier before he can be off in that yawl of his. He was pretty near dead with rage and running, but off he went for the pier, and I came looking for you.
Old Abner sat on the rocks, swaying from side to side.
When first we came here, he moaned, I thought of trying out by John's farm there, but them Indians put me wrong, and it was there all the time, and that fox old John had it in his cellar and watched us digging it for 20 years. I've gone harvesting there and drunk a horn or two with him a dozen times, and he grinned and said nothing. He had us fooled all the time, the worst kind of fools. What was he planning to do with it? Keep it from doing harm, he said. He's been fooled himself now, pretty good.
Old Abner said,
But he'll answer to me for the fool he made of me. But how did the Trigger find where the stuff was?
He asked after a pause. John told me that, his son said. He found bits of the boat in John's yard. Now, found it first go off. He never had to dig nor nothing. He had us fooled all the time. Now he's got it. He won't have it for long.
He won't have it for long,
the old man said. It's hard to keep track with all these voices and them not saying who's actually talking. Where was I? I don't know for that, his son said. Old John won't stop him. Old John, I reckon, will just let it go without a word as soon as his dander goes down.
Well, I wouldn't, his father said. I'll get this Benito Trigger, sir, whenever he comes,
Sorry, I get ahead of myself again.
Wherever he comes ashore, I'll have the stuff yet, or my fair half of it, or he shall squeal for it. I'll start this day. He ain't done with me yet. He only begun.
At this point, little Abner broke in upon them with,
I guess I want to go home.
We'll get home. Walk, his father said.
guess I don't want to walk. Well, I guess you'll just have to. I guess I ain't gonna walk. I guess you are. How else are you going to get? I guess I want to be carried. Who's gonna carry you? I guess you are. I guess I'm not. Then I guess Grandpop's gonna carry me? I guess he ain't, Grandpop said. Then I guess I'll stay here and yell. Saying this, he started to yell. His father boxed his ears to give him, as he said, something to yell for. Old Man Abner said, I'm off for Trigger's home. When he gets there, he'll find me waiting for him. At this, the picture suddenly dimmed. The figures of the three Browns blurred into the background. Kay saw the surf and the waves of the sea, and then lo, the shining head said, That is all. And the picture vanished. Kay rose from his chair. At the same instant, the scarlet cloak which he was wearing turned into a scarlet canoe. It floated him up from the floor, bore a big hole in the wall, floated him through, and then sped him home like a bird. In a minute, the outfit was on its peg, and Kay was in the drawing room, looking at Aunt Susan's compendium. And we'll stop right there, my dear scholars. I think it's a good stopping point. Oh my goodness. This part actually got really exciting. Yulian 20, is that shining head the same one in box? So I know Yulian 20 that you said that you saw Box of Delights. Yes, it is the same head in Box of Delights. That's the same magic head that is in there. I can't remember the actual phrase. There's an actual proper term for this kind of head, but I can't remember what it is, and I am saying the words head way too many times for a stream such as this. I assure you that I mean it as in the actual, like a sculpted face head and not anything else. Please, please don't turn this into something worse than it actually is. But no, this whole section has been actually pretty interesting. We got a lot more magic in it, and I think it's moving a little bit faster. We don't have a lot left of the book, actually. We're getting down to the wire. I think we don't have a lot left. So we might have maybe the next reading stream, 1 to 2 streams, will be the last that we'll finish this book. Or at least I'll try to finish the book on time. Depending on things, of course. But no, I hope you scholars have been enjoying it. It's been getting actually honestly a little bit exciting. So next week's streams. Next week I am going to try and continue Metal Gear Solid on Tuesday. I might try and do the torture puzzle outside the stream just so we can get past it, because I really, really don't want to do it again. Because it's not fun. It's not a lot of... I know you scholars enjoy seeing me suffer through it, but it is so painfully not fun for me. And then next Thursday, if everything goes according to plan, remember, everything always depends on everything going according to plan. Next Thursday, we will be maybe concluding the Midnight Folk after all this time. Or we might have to do one more stream after that to finish it. But for now, I see our time is almost up. So let's see if there is anyone we can raid for the night. Let's see who is going. Oh, I see. Actually, see, Legacy Bookish is streaming right now. Since they visited us, let's go visit them. So, my dear scholars, I say unto you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, till we meet each other again at the study.
Take care, and I shall see you next time. Till then, farewell, and bye bye. Virgil, you're still not off the hook for what you did.